running, and that's why I'm really pleased to be at this meeting to talk about that and to talk about what we as people who want to do something about climate change can do. The other thing that we've decided to do this year is, in relation to that, in October, we've announced something called the Great Climate Swoop, which is going to be a weekend of mass direct action to try and shut down Ratcliffe-on-Soar power station in Nottingham, which is owned by E.ON. It's the second most polluting coal power station in the UK after Drax, and it's E.ON's other big coal power station, and we have said we're going to try and shut it down as a way of saying we're opposed to Kingsnorth, we're opposed to new coal power stations, but also old coal power stations need to be shut down as soon as possible, and we're going to start by doing that in October. So that's one thing we're going to do. And the other thing we're going to do is the Copenhagen Summit in December. There is, as many of you will know, there's a UN summit in Copenhagen in December which is to negotiate the successor agreement to the Kyoto Protocol. There's a lot of debate about whether or not there's any possibility of a good deal coming out of the summit, and at the back you'll see a newspaper called Deal or No Deal, which some people in Climate Camp have produced, which I'd urge you to take a copy away of because it's very interesting and informative. But what Climate Camp is participating in at the Copenhagen Summit, I'm really sorry that my phone keeps buzzing, is a day of action called, actually let me work out what it's called Reclaim Power, Pushing for Climate Justice, and it's the day that the world's leaders, if they come, arrive for the summit. So it's towards the end of what is a 2-week summit, and it's a day when people from climate justice movements around the world, people from communities affected by climate change, people from countries in the north who want climate justice, have said that they will go to the venue of the summit and they will try and get inside the summit and take it over and have a people's climate summit in that venue for one day. So it's not about shutting down the summit completely, but it is about saying that the business lobby is too strong and the climate justice agenda is not there, it's not present in the summit. So we want to bring that agenda into the conference centre for that day, and that's what we'll be taking part in. So as a kind of an overview of where Climate Camp is coming from in terms of Kingsnorth and the climate debate, and yeah, I'm happy to take part in the discussion when we get there. Thank you very
much. I'm Richard. I work for Greenpeace centrally, and we're quite different from Climate Camp, but I guess we have certain parallel interests. We are one of those centralised non-governmental organisations, which means we do things in quite a focused way. And for the last couple of years, I guess we've been campaigning on very similar issues to the grassroots organisation is Climate Camp. And although I do work for Greenpeace, I wear quite a lot of different hats, and I guess I've been to most of them and do a fair amount of activism on the side. Now I'm going to show a short film tonight about a specific event that did happen at Kingsnorth Coal Power Station. And it's essentially a small group of people in the film who took non-violent direct action to try and shut that power station down. What you don't see in the film is the 50 or 60 other people who are involved. It's a short documentary produced by Nick Broomfield, and it's a very personal story of those people's actions. But there are an awful lot of people involved behind the scenes. And there are a few Greenpeace people dotted around here tonight. I don't think any of them are on that action, but it is something that somebody like yourself could easily have got involved in without necessarily climbing a very large chimney. I'm also going to do a little bit of an overview about our coal work, and specifically how we got to the point where we did take direct action, and kind of what we've done afterwards. But I thought I'd just sort of start by talking about why we do non-violent direct action, why we as an organisation with an office down the road do choose to quite regularly break the law. It's obviously something that most organisations don't do. A fair amount of sympathy in this building for people who do that. So maybe I'll just start again by doing a show of hands. Does anybody here has broken the law for something they believe in? Or who would be willing to do so given the right circumstances? Okay, I'm going to ask that question again at the end. So Greenpeace is an organisation which I guess was founded on non-violent direct action. It's an organisation that was founded in 1971 by a small group of fairly crazy people deciding to sail a ship into a nuclear test zone. That's quite a good way of getting yourself blown up, especially as it hadn't really been done before. So they took an action that on the face of it looks insane, and they achieved huge amounts of publicity around the world for an issue that was big in Vancouver and on the west coast of America, but not really a global issue. And Greenpeace has always kind of held that as something that is fundamental to us as an organisation. We talk about personal action, we talk about action speaking louder than words, we talk about people bearing witness for things that are going on in the world, and basically individuals taking responsibility to do something about the state of the world. Now, that's kind of the part of Greenpeace you see on the news. It's the part of Greenpeace that we're famous for. And we do regularly take those kind of events. But behind the scenes, there's a lot of very dull campaigning. We publish a lot of very dull reports. We do a lot of analysis. We talk to politicians quite a lot, probably too much. In fact, teaching some people on Saturday how to talk to politicians. I think I'd rather be doing something else. But ultimately, it's a mechanism we will use to the point where we decide that all those conversations, all those reports, all that evidence being produced and presented to decision makers doesn't actually change the world. So we do take direct action. But we don't do it lightheartedly. We do it as part of a campaign. We do it for a specific reason at a specific point because we think it will make a difference. You know, we're not out there vandalising things for the fun of it. We're out there because we want to achieve change. And occasionally those decision makers who've got all the evidence, who've been spoken to, who basically do know what they should be doing, need a little bit of a kick up the arse. And that's where we come in. But also in terms of what we do, we kind of have a lot of thought behind what we're trying to achieve and how we plan it and how we put it into practice. And we talk about direct action all the time, and I guess what I mean by direct action might be potentially what you mean by direct action, or might be something very different. So when Greenpeace does a direct action, it's for a very specific reason. We either want to stop something happening using direct action, or we want to start something happening. We want to actually physically intervene between us and something bad. So a classic situation such as whaling. You know, if a Greenpeace activist stands in front of a harpoon, it stops that happening, even for a short period of time. If people go into Kingsnorth Power Station and chain themselves to a conveyor carrying coal, that stops that power station running, even for a short period of time. And that to us is the essence of what we would call direct action. We do lots of other stuff as well, which I guess on the face of it might look like direct action. We do photo opportunities to try and get a big splash in the media. Now we wouldn't call that direct action, but the world outside probably would. You know, we go somewhere and we try and do something dramatic, quite often something creative, with the sole purpose that we want to get a big image out there that tells the world about an issue. It's something that could get into just as much trouble as chaining yourself to a conveyor belt, but it's not about stopping something happening. We wouldn't call it direct action, we'd call it a photo opportunity. We take part in demonstrations and protests. We're really quite bad at it, but we do it. But also we try and use what looks like an action to communicate ideas to decision makers. So we would call it something like a direct communication, where we find something wrong with the world and we try and illustrate the problem and take it to the person whose responsibility it is to change. So I know a couple of years ago we did a lot of work around dolphin bycatch in the English Channel. So basically dolphins that are being killed as a byproduct of fishing. So dead dolphins being washed ashore in Cornwall in northern France. So we took those dolphins to the French embassy. We put them on their doorstep and said, this is the problem, it's on your doorstep, you need to deal with this. We then left the dolphins there, which is unfortunate and probably a bit unpleasant, but it gets a message home. So that's kind of Greenpeace's view about direct action. It's about either stopping things and starting things, which is the kind of purest definition. It's about getting good publicity with a photo opportunity, taking part in big demonstrations, or it's really communicating a message to a decision maker, to somebody who can actually change things. I guess after this, hopefully, you might feel inspired to get more involved in these kind of activities. And you've got a kind of choice of two ends of the spectrum here. You've got a climate camp movement, which is very much about consensus, about grassroots, about people coming together to make decisions, and then hopefully take part in direct action. And you have got a fairly centralised NGO. Both Neil and Henrietta come from Greenpeace. And if you do want to get involved in those kind of activities, then we do need more people. We do need people who aren't necessarily going to climb big chimneys, but are going to take action and going to volunteer some of their time to try and make a difference. So please, depending where you fit on the spectrum, either talk to Jonathan afterwards, or Henrietta, Neil, or me, and get involved. So I also want to talk a little bit about coal, and I'm going to do this in two halves because I've got quite an interesting film. I'm going to talk about the events that led to that film, and then I'll talk about what happened afterwards.